Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Rosh, and this is a video series called AxeFX 3 Basics. A little about me. I'm an LA-based guitar player and guitar tech. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Dweezil Zappa, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Bush, and more. So I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some of my approaches on how to build presets. So this video is going to cover scene usage as well as channels. So let's talk about some of the basics of what scenes are. So within a preset, you have 8 scenes. Presets are basically the building blocks or the layout of a sound that you're designing. You can think of this almost like your pedal board, but this also includes the amp and the cab, as well as any post effects that you would put, let's say, if you were recording guitar. Now, what scenes allow you to do is turn on and off multiple effects simultaneously, so you don't have to individually turn on the drive pedal, the delay pedal, the reverb pedal, or any other effects that you have in your signal chain. So I put together a basic preset, and this is like a Fender Twin. Real clean sound. And in the first scene, I have no effects on. Now, what I can do is, in scene 2, I can turn on multiple effects. So what you want to do is designate your first scene as like your main sound on the preset. So let's say I just want a real, just basic clean sound. So it would be an amp, a cab, and a reverb. But let's say I wanted a sound with the drive and the delay on as my second scene. So you would turn on those set effects, adjust them to whatever you want, to your liking, and then you would just hit save. And now, whenever the preset goes to scene 2, it'll turn on those effects. And you want to make sure that you save the preset in the scene that you want the preset to load up in. Now, one of the advantages of using scenes, in addition to not having to press both the drive and the delay at the same time, is that there's also gapless switching. So you can hear that there's no audio gap. You may hear an increase in volume, but that's obviously due to the overdrive that you're using. Okay, and seems to be switching channels. Okay, so now in scene 3, I just have the delay turning on. So it's just delay only. And the cool thing is, between scenes, you can jump between any scene. They don't need to go in any chronological or specific order. You can go from scene 3 to scene 1 to scene 3, scene 3 to scene 2, scene 1 to scene 8. So you have 8 of these in your given preset, and you can, of course, label all of them to be any title. Now, remember that within a preset, you can't change the layout. So how your effects are routed is going to be like set in stone. So you can't have the delay here after the cab block in one scene and then have the delay in front of the amp in another scene. You would need to build a preset, or you would need to use another instance of the block itself. So if you wanted a delay in front of the amp, you would need to use a second delay, adjust the settings to your choice, turn that on in a specific scene, and then turn this delay that's after all the amp and cab stuff, and turn that on and off within a given scene. Now, so that's kind of the basic usage of scenes. So again, I have clean sound, all my effects on, and then I have this. So let's talk about what the channels are. So within most of the amp blocks, most of the regular blocks, you have 4 channels. And so basically what this allows you to do is, instead of having, let's say, 4 delay blocks, which is going to eat up your processing power, right? So you don't have to do something like this to get different delay sounds, right? What you can do instead is you can use the channels. So for example, this instance of the delay is the digital mono, and then let's say in a different scene, I want to use, I don't know, stereo tape. So the cool thing is that in one scene you can go to, so let's say in scene 1, it's going to use channel A, but in scene 2, it's going to use channel B. So if you look in the bottom left, as I switch between scenes, it's going to go from channel A to channel B and you can have it jump between those. Now the other thing that you can do, of course, is you can also do this with your amp block. So I've dialed in a Marshall sound in channel B of this preset, and I also put a cab here that's going to match with that, so this is just a 70s greenback. So from scene 1, let's relabel these. So we'll go, this is going to be amp channel A, and this will be amp channel B. We'll turn that delay off for right now, and then let's save it. So what's going to happen is that now my amp is going to function like almost like a channel switching amp in the real world counterpart. So if you're used to playing an amp that has like a clean and a dirty channel, this is your way to do it. Now effectively you actually have 4 channels, so you can, it's almost like having a 4-channel amp, similar to, let's say, what's a 4-channel amp? Like the Mesa Boogie Roadster or something like that. So here is my clean sound in scene 1. And then here is my Marshall sound that's going to switch to channel B in scene 2, and it also switched to the cabinet B. So scene 1, channel A, scene 2, channel B. And so now you can have 2 effectively completely different amp and cab sounds per scene. So for example, here's my clean sound, and here's my dirty sound. So if you look at the amp block, as I switch between scenes, is the double verb, and then here is the Brit 800. Now the cool thing is, for example, let's say I wanted a clean sound, a rhythm guitar sound, and then maybe a lead sound. In this lead sound, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this channel B, or amp channel B, plus delay and drive. So I will turn this on. We'll use channel D. We'll turn the delay on, and then we'll make sure this is channel B. Make sure this is channel B. So slowly, this is scene 1 is my clean sound using the double verb. Channel 2 is my rhythm crunch sound using channel B of the amp block, as well as the matching cab, channel B. And then scene 3 is like my quote-unquote lead sound using channel B of the amp and cabinet, but this time I turn on the overdrive and the delay, so it's almost like having a lead sound. So let's go through each of the sounds. So here's my clean, here's my rhythm crunch sound, and then here's my lead sound. So obviously that's probably not the tone I would use, but maybe something more like that. So we'll dial that in later. Okay, so this is the advantage of scenes. You can see that each scene is completely flexible and customizable. It's almost like having 8 quote-unquote presets within a preset, but remember you have to keep the layout uniform between each scene. So as a takeaway, or just to wrap it all up, basically within each scene, choose your channel that you want of any of the blocks. Some blocks have up to 4 channels, some less, and then put the layout as you want it, but remember that it's permanent, that it's fixed. You can't change the layout, and then turn on the effects that you want on and off within each scene and what channels you want, and then you have ultimate flexibility between these 8 scenes of what you want to turn on and off, all at the press of a button. So there's some basics of using using channels, not just amp channels, but channels in general, as well as using the scenes. So one of the last things to keep in mind, and something that I will cover in the future video, is that remember when you're switching between presets, there's always going to be an audio gap. So I made a copy of this preset into preset 37. If you switch between presets, there's always going to be an audio gap. Right? So you can hear that. Okay. And the other thing to always keep in mind is that when you're switching amp channels, there's always also going to be an audio gap. That's just the limitations of the hardware. So in a future video, I will definitely cover how to do gapless switching when changing the amp block using multiple amps as well as multiple amp channels. So if you listen, So you can hear switching between scene 1 and 2, because we are switching the amp channel, there's going to be an audio gap. Okay. Now keep in mind that if we did not change the amp or the cab block between scenes, then there won't be an audio gap. So you can hear, because I'm keeping the amp channel on amp A, between scene 1 and 2, there's no audio gap. Okay, so for example, if we go back to how this preset is saved, if we go between scene 2, which is my amp channel B, and in scene 3, which is amp channel B plus delay plus the drive, there won't be any audio gap because the amp channel is not switching. But if I go between amp channel 2 and amp channel 1, because there is a channel switch, there's going to be an audio gap. And of course, if I go between 3 and scene 1, again, because there is an amp channel switching, you'll hear an audio gap. Okay. Now, if that's something that you that you can't deal with, and you really need that gapless audio switching, I will definitely cover how to do that in a future video. But for right now, just understand that that is a limitation in the hardware. Okay, so other than that, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.